Hello, everyone. This is Tina, Less Leg, More Heart, and we're so excited that you stopped in for tonight's meeting, Heart to Heart, which is a platform for folks to congregate to discuss topics relevant to amputation, trauma, and just overall being a human. We bring inspirational stories, educational consultants, people that are health and wellness experts to the forefront so that you guys can learn from the very best. And we're just so glad that you're here, taking an invested interest in getting better, becoming educated, and helping to support other people and yourself along the journey. So today we have Linda. She is an incredible resource. She has just such a profound story of perseverance and adaptability and pivoting, and is very ingrained in the holistic world and transformational life coaching. I think just to sort of chop down the very, very long list of her accolades and the things that she is wonderful at that I'll let her explain to you. But without further ado, I would love to have Linda present today on the stories that we tell ourselves and the ways and the tools that we can utilize to possibly change them. So Linda, thank you so much for being here today and talking to the group. And I look forward to learning from you.
Thank you, Tina. I'm so excited and really happy to be here. And it just so happens I'm here today with you talking about stories and about things that happen in our lives. And today is the 3-year anniversary of my daughter's passing. So I feel like which may sound more somber than I intended it to, as I just heard myself, but I actually think it just speaks to life brings us what it brings us, and we have a choice on what we're going to do with it and how we're going to move forward. And so when this date showed up, whether it's 2 people or 20 people, I was like, that's really the day I want to be there to talk about this topic. So thank you for having me today. And my background is I've been 37 years in health and wellness through a whole spectrum of ways that I worked with clients. And I really now work with women primarily in the areas of stress, releasing past trauma, chronic stress, overwhelm, and the way that they see their life and view their life, help them shift that so that they're not stressed, because stress is really our perception of what's happened or happening. That's really what stress is. We think it's what's happening, but it's always our perception. So for tonight's conversation, I thought we would do, somebody's coming. Nancy's coming. So I'll wait a second for Nancy to come in.
Hey, Nancy, if you can hear us, Linda just got started, so you haven't missed much except for her incredible background and nearly 3 or 4 decades in health and wellness, and her explanation of her daughter's passing a few years ago, and sort of talking more about our stories and how we can change them. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Nancy. So, and I know for the housekeeping is, talking about dogs barking. So I'm just going to lay it out front. I have to be not on mute, and I have 2 dogs. So if they bark, I apologize and we'll just deal with it. But I want to talk today about a concept that I don't know if you've heard of before or not, but it's really talking about the neurology of the way that human beings think and interact with their world. And so we're really set up with our brain to take in information and interpret it. And the way that we interpret it determines everything. It determines our experience of that event, and it determines how we experience things in the future as they come at us. So, computers are actually, were designed by men and are actually very much similar to brains. So if you're familiar with how computers work, it's kind of the same thing, but our brains take in information, 5 senses, right? We see things, we hear things, we feel things, we smell things, we taste things. Those are all the ways that our brain gets information. And when that information comes in, it's the brain's job to interpret it, right? Like a computer, you input data and the computer whatever the program is that you're running, it interprets that data and then it spits you out an answer or it does something. So the brain, that's what the brain's doing. It takes in the data, what happened, and it makes an interpretation. So I'm actually going to share my screen for a second, and we're going to just do, if you take notes during these things, you could write this down. If you don't, you just want to watch, that's totally fine too. But can you see the whiteboard, Tina? Yeah. Okay. So let's see how we do. Black. Okay, good. So I'm going to draw 2 circles. It's a little tricky drawing with your mouse pad. And in one circle, I'm going to put the words, what happened? So something happens. You're driving on the road and a car merges in front of you and he didn't put his blinker on. That's what happened. You get up in the morning and there's dishes in the sink that someone left when you went to bed. It was a clean sink. That's what happened. You have a daughter that is got catastrophic medical issues and one day she passes. That's what happened. Okay. So there's what happened. And then in the other circle is the story that we make about what happened or the meaning that we give it, however it fits for you to think about. So I'd like you to think of something. Let's not pick a really heavily charged one. Let's pick something easy. Something happens. I'll do the car merges in front of you, right? So you're driving along on the highway and a car merges in front of you. He didn't put his blinker on. So you see the car, you might hear it coming, you know, probably you see it as probably the most way that you get your data. And in that moment, your brain makes an interpretation and gives it a story. And it might be something like, that guy is really rude and dangerous. He doesn't care about me or anybody else on the road. We almost got killed right there. So it's really at the very same time, something happens and immediately, like at the same time, they're so intertwined. It's so exactly at the same moment, you don't even notice. There's no like gap, like, oh, here's data, now I make a story. No, it's exactly at the same time. And then the story will create the next time something happens. This story is in your data bank. You created it, and now the next time something happens, you're going to pull that story up. So it really becomes like they are collapsed, and it becomes for us the reality. So the reality is, let's go even further. Male drivers are rude and disrespectful because it happened to be a man, right? That could be a story that somebody makes. It could be, you know, like I almost died. Well, actually, he merged in front and it startled you, but there was no contact. There was, you know, not even anything to really worry about. It just was annoying. But if you live from a place of fear, I almost died will be your story, because you're going to pull up a story that fits your interpretations of the world and of your events that have happened all throughout your life. Does this make sense so far? Have you ever thought about stories in your life in the past? Is this okay. So it's not a new conversation necessarily, but I think that it's really helpful, especially in the area of trauma. And I just want to take a second and talk a little bit about trauma. That's a very dramatic word. And I know people in this group have had dramatic things happen. But when I work with my clients, I like to shift it a little bit and just say life experiences, because trauma, just by the very definition, makes us feel victimy. The word itself, I've had trauma in my life. We all have had trauma. We all are living this human life, right? This experience. So if you can kind of shift it, words are really powerful. And the definition that they hold also has a story. So I'm just going to shift it, not to diminish what any of us have been through, but it's just life experiences. So we've had our life experiences, something happened, and we create the meaning from that. But it becomes very much collapsed and what the reality is. Here's another example. I had a client, it's a little bit longer story. I had a client that I was working with. She's in her early 30s. She is head of the IT department. I'm sorry, head of human resources department for an IT company in Manhattan. She's been there like 5 years. And I don't know if I said she's in her early 30s. Anyway, she was working with me about with chronic health issues. So we were talking about her schedule, like her stress, how much sleep she gets, et cetera. And this was during the pandemic, the first year of the pandemic. And so she said to me, well, I get up around 6, I grab my coffee, I'm in front of the computer, and I pretty much stay there until 9 at night since the pandemic had started. And before that, she and her boyfriend, like when she would go to the office, right? This was when everybody started working in the house. When they were out at work, they would get back home in the evening, eat together, go for a walk together, come back and watch TV. But she said, I'm not doing that now because I'm just staying on the computer. And I said, Veronica, why do you feel like you need to stay on the computer from 6 a.m. till 9? Like, why are you doing that now when you didn't do it before? And she said, well, I'm worried that my boss will know that I'm a fraud in my job. I'm worried that she's going to realize I don't really know what I'm doing. Now, she'd been doing it for 5 years pretty well because her boss really gave her some time to come and work on her health out of appreciation for what she provides. But anyway, she said, I'm afraid my boss will feel like I'm a fraud. So I just stay on the computer doing extra, extra, extra. So there's no question that I'm not doing enough. I said, when did you first start feeling like people might think you're a fraud? Like, when did that start happening? And she thought, it didn't take very long, 30 seconds. And she said, when I was in first grade, she had gone to a Catholic school and she wasn't really proficient in reading and math. She liked performing arts. She was very creative and artsy. And so one day, she hadn't learned to read yet. One day the teacher said to her, Veronica, go down the hallway to the 3rd grade class and get your sister out of 3rd grade and bring her back here. And this is in front of the whole class. So she does that. And when the sister comes back, the teacher says, Mary, you were such a good student when I had you as a 1st grader. You were so good at reading. Why are you such a bad big sister? And Mary and Veronica are both, 3rd grade and 1st grade in front of the class. And the teacher says, you're a bad big sister because Veronica's a terrible student and she doesn't even know how to read yet. And you haven't helped her or taught her how to read. And in that moment, the story that Veronica made up about herself as a 6-year-old is, I'm the stupid one. Mary's the smart one. I'm the stupid one. And so I always need to work extra, extra hard to prove myself. Otherwise, everybody's going to see that I'm stupid. And in our call, as we were doing work together, she did this with her body. She's like, I always am like shape shifting. That was her words, to figure out what everybody else wants so I can go do that so they don't realize that I'm really stupid. And it's been exhausting her. Here she was, 32 years old and completely exhausted. She's like, I did it all through high school. If I dated a guy, how did he want me to be? If I was with girlfriends, how did they dress? Let me dress like them. Let me be the way he wanted. I never did what I thought because I thought I was stupid. So that 6-year-old little girl was driving the head of the IT department in how she was living her life. Can you see how that could unfold? Okay. So when we want to start to uncollapse our stories, it gives us freedom. It gives us freedom to live from nothing, to create our life in this moment, regardless of what has happened. And there's a lot more work to do around story, like what happened in childhood that made you choose this story today. Because our stories, once we pick a story, our brain looks to find evidence to support it. Our brain will always look to create what we already believe. And that's what you're going to see. So if you have a story like I'm the stupid one, you will always see the examples of that. So I'm curious, does anybody, and I can probably stop sharing, right? You guys see that just because I like to see your beautiful faces. Is anybody willing to talk about, it could be something recent, something pretty simple, or whatever level you feel comfortable, where something happened to you. And here's what, you don't have to know what your story is right now. Something happened and you feel upset about it. Something happened and it's causing you stress in your body. It might be anger. It might be fear. It might be frustration, resentment. But when you think of this event, you feel it in your body. You have like a physical / emotional reaction. And again, it doesn't have to be supercharged right now unless you wanted to bring one up. But does anybody want to share something and we could kind of dismantle it?
Yeah, I'll start. I know this whole group could help with this, and I would encourage, because I know all of you personally, you to utilize this opportunity and our incredible resource that's here to help facilitate unwinding some of these things, because the amputees that are in this group, I know that there are stories that you have told yourself and continue to tell yourself that do delay the progress and the joy that you could be deriving from your life. So I'm not going to force you, but I will share my deepest, darkest pain to hopefully make it easier for you guys to share. My husband left me 6 weeks after my amputation, and I felt unlovable and disfigured and abandoned and betrayed and useless and like I had no value, worthless, unwanted, all of those things. And the narration of that created like profound levels of suffering. It made me, just based not on the action of what happened, but the story that I continued to tell myself about who I must be for that to have occurred, made me clinically depressed. I couldn't eat because I couldn't eat. I couldn't ambulate around the crutches in my house to take care of myself or my animals. I'd lost 21 pounds of muscle within, less than a month. I was not well. And thankfully, that was the first point in my life where I had to accept help, because a best friend had kicked my door in and found me in like the same pajamas I was wearing for probably a week, and with the same bar of protein next to my bed that I had tried to chew on for 3 days. And she was the one that had told me, to your point, Linda, you are doing this yourself. You're choosing to suffer, and you're choosing to give away your own power. And this isn't your story. This is just the story you're telling yourself. And you can just literally stand up and change the story. Yeah. And because I had an external source, and because I had laid there and given up on life for 3 weeks and it didn't get me anywhere good, and this was a very, very close, trusted source, I started to just fake it almost till I made it, or feel in my heart, I guess. I was faking confidence. I was faking joy. I was faking looking at the positive. I was like forcing myself to look at the sun so I didn't see shadows. But through that repetitive forcing myself to look away from the natural tendency of my mind to go, you're unlovable. So everything that happens, every person that doesn't call you back, every person that's not stopping by, every card you don't get, everything you don't get invited to must be because you're not, because you're right. It linked immediately to this story of confirmation about who I felt I wasn't. And it was really hard, but through repetition over a long time, I was able to, break from that. But I will tell you, in speaking to your point about how hardwired this is, things that have happened that have been traumatic since that time, which was, 7 years ago, it hasn't grabbed me as hard, but, there's still that like seed sometimes where you feel like you could regress. And it's a big fear of mine and other people that like that progress that you've made could slip somehow. And yeah, no, I'm only here doing what I'm doing because I changed the way I decided I wanted to view myself and the way that I spoke to myself, because I think that that was the only thing that changed my course.
Mm. Yeah, that's very powerful. And that is one really great technique, is to sort of fake it till you make it, and just, start to try to just move in some direction, because you were frozen,
Mm.
right? And where you were. We're going to come back to Tina's story in a second, but I want to go back to Veronica's story and then use that to go into Tina's story. It is the story we tell ourselves. And one way to dismantle it, to really diminish the power that it has, is to say, what other story could I tell? What other story is there? So for Veronica, when I asked her that, she thought for a second, and she was like, I don't know, the teacher was a jerk. Yeah, let's go with that. The teacher was a jerk, which is very different than the 6-year-old girl is stupid. Okay, we don't want to stick with the teacher was a jerk. What else could we say? She was well-intentioned, but in those days, and sometimes in Catholic schools, they can do things that a public school wouldn't do. And shame was a tactic that teacher probably had learned growing up herself. When you shame a kid, then they're motivated because they don't want to be embarrassed like that anymore. So I'll shame her in front of the class, and then she'll step up, thinking that was a good tool, except that it had Veronica, given who, just the personality that she was, created. And by the way, children will always create the story that they're the problem, because they don't see adults as ever being wrong at a 6-year-old age. So that's one really powerful way to change your story, is to say, what else could I make up? Because I just made that up. I made it up. Tina made up that she's not worthy, that she's not important, that she's not lovable. She made that up. And if you make that up, you can make up anything else. So what else, Tina, could you make up now, like in hindsight, right? But if we were doing it, and I know that you have already probably done a lot of this work, but what could you make up as a different story that doesn't disempower you?
I am a smart ass businesswoman, and I'm not going to let no man derail my life. That's what I could have said.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I could have said, he doesn't see my value, rather than owning being invaluable, that it's a challenge with the other person's view of me, so that the ownership, moves off of my shoulders to someone else's ineptitude. Like the casting of accountability for me was something that I had used. So I could have used that. I could have said, I am very loved. I have so many people that love me in my life. It's just that this wasn't the fit I thought it was.
Mm-hmm. Maybe even a story like, he has fear. He's let his fear of, can I provide for her? Can I take care of her? She's going to need care. I don't know if I can do that. And he let his fear be bigger than his love.
That's good.
It's all made up. I have no idea, right? But might as well make up something that is like, oh, and what I kind of like about that is that it actually, for me anyway, brings compassion to him.
Yeah, that is a huge healer, that empathy and compassion for someone. That saved a lot of the feelings of anger I've had with the disappointments in people's behavior in general. That's a good point.
Yeah, because people, this is what I believe. We all have our worldviews, right? My worldview is that people always do the very best that they can. But the best that they can is based on the tools that they have in that moment, their own evolution and their own journey so far. Like, he may very well look back when he's in his 60s and be like, I can't believe I did that. You know, I don't know, but it's a different story than Tina is not lovable. It's a much different story. And you could probably, what I usually do with my clients with this particular exercise is we try to come up with 5 or 6 possible other stories so that you start to see, and some of them are like, nah, but some of them are like, yeah, that's pretty plausible. Oh, so's that one. Oh, so's that one. Wow, they're all as equally plausible as I'm not lovable. Another thing you could do with your story is imagine yourself now in that scene. Like Veronica now is the 32-year-old head of human resources standing in that classroom, watching the exchange between the teacher and the child. What do you say to yourself now? Now that Tina's kicking it, right? She's got awards going, she's running groups, she's doing it, she's raising her son. So this Tina, if you walked into the living room of that woman in the pajamas with the protein bar that's still not eaten, just like your friend did, what would you say to her? What's the different story? So you can look back on your own events, see what your story is, and what would you say to that person as if it wasn't you? Of course you would be like, oh my God, you're totally lovable. Look how amazing you are.
Let him go, his loss, right?
Let him go. Yeah. I mean, whatever you want, you make it up. Or you could also look at it. Here's the third one of just of three ways to get a cut at your story. And then I'd love to hear from somebody else. But another thing to do is to imagine there are 10 people watching the scenario of what happened. So we have what happened in one circle, story in one circle. And the what happened is always just the events, no emotion. The emotion is tied to the story. So when people start to tell what happened, you hear, if you're hearing emotion or, well, he should have, blah, blah, blah. That's not what happened. Just the facts, ma'am, like the police, just the facts. He said to me, I can't stay anymore. I'm leaving this marriage, and he walked out. That's what happened. Everything else is emotionally charged based on the story Tina made up. So if we took 10 people from different backgrounds, men and women and children, different ethnicities, different religions, different parts of the world. And we asked all 10 of them, describe exactly what happened. What do you see? We would get 10 different interpretations. We would get 10 different stories, right? Because people are always interpreting. That's why you ever see any crime drama, right? They're going around and they're collecting stuff, and they knock on people's doors, and everybody says a different thing because they see it through their interpretation. So that's another practice of what would, a Jewish rabbi who's 85 say if he saw that happen? What would a little girl in middle school say? Just what do you think those people would see from their point of view? And that can help dismantle the story. Because again, the story comes so automatically and they're so collapsed, it feels like the truth. It really does. So it takes some practice to pull them apart. Is there anybody else who's willing to share something that happened and do some work on dismantling it?
I will share while hopefully someone unmutes that there are tones of relational struggles and losses. There are tones of recurrent medical issues and recurrent surgeries, like debilitations, trauma, PTSD, just loss. And those are common themes between a lot of the participants today. So stories of maybe, and please unmute if you have a story you want to share, otherwise mention some things that I've heard. I have to have my leg amputated. why me? Why do bad things always happen to me? The universe is out to get me. I don't deserve to be well. I'm never going to feel good again. It's just a matter of time before another thing happens. I'm not going to be able to do things for myself. I'm not going to be able to do the things that I ever thought that I was going to do before. I am going to be a burden on the people that I love. I don't deserve relational stability because I'm so physically dependent and needy. Who's going to want to love me because look at me. Those are just a number of comments that in working with folks on this call and not that are recurrent themes. Raise your hand in the group maybe if any of those are something that you may have told yourself before.
Where they come from, I mean, I can like make things up. Maybe this happened or that happened, but where they come from is unique to each person, but they come from somewhere. So our memories are like a data bank, right? Memories happen, things happen, and it gets stored in our memories. And that's where your brain draws from to make its interpretation today. So it's always something happened in the past that would drive you to make that particular interpretation today. So that's unique to each person. You know, that's like having the conversation, Veronica, when did you first feel like you had to prove yourself in that way? Oh, well, first grade, this happened. It would be that kind of thing. So again, we all have life experiences. I'll share mine a little bit more deeply until, unless somebody wants to go ahead and jump in.
I think there's tones just for the background too, while you're thinking through the addressing of the group. Lynn, Liz, I'll let you go in just a second. There are tones of past traumas, you know, that preceded the amputation. Maybe it was bullying, not fitting in. Maybe it was verbal, sexual, or physical abuse, or still is. I think that has been a common theme in a lot of folks that I've worked with in this organization, just to put that out there. And then Liz, I think you're ready.
I don't know if this is right, but I guess I'd say what happened would be, I don't know, I'd say 18 surgeries. And then my story was, you know, I'll be legless for the rest of my life. And I'm getting better at it, I guess.
So, okay, Liz, thank you so much. Being legless for the rest of your life, what do you make that mean about you?
Well, I think with the surgeries and the rehab and working really hard and then being defeated constantly, but I wouldn't ever have a prosthesis or run again, I guess.
So what does it mean to you to never run again? I'm
Yes.
less than other people. I'm not good enough if I can't run. There's some meaning that you're giving that scenario deep, you know, deeper than I don't have a leg and I can't run. Okay, what does that mean about you?
I think for you, Liz, I know that a big part that you shared with me and that I think all of us on the call as amputees can relate to is the dependency,
Oh,
right? That seems to be for me what people lean into. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, Liz, but I know that the lack of independence and the dependency and the lack of being able to move forward in your life the way that you thought you would be from an independent standpoint, it seems to be the weight of a lot of it.
yeah, and I think running, I ran from everything, I guess, in life, or avoided everything. And now you're kind of stuck and you're stagnant and you're stuck with everything you used to run from. And it's hard, especially like Tina said, it's like I've been independent for 20 years out of the house, and it's a change of events. You're with your parents again, you have to be dependent sometimes on them, and it's hard.
And
So-
maybe that makes you less desirable to others. I know that there's been relational challenges with all of us, and sometimes it's, am I going to find someone to share life with that's going to want me like this, especially if I am dependent?
So Liz, if you're willing, I would really love to like go a little deeper with you. Do you feel safe and comfortable doing that? Or no?
Okay.
You know.
No, okay.
Okay. Because when we do, something will shift for you. Something could change on tonight's call if you're willing to do that. So I think some of the words that you used were have run from things before and I can't run anymore.
Mhm.
When did you start running from things in your life? Long before you became an amputee?
4.
What happened when you were 4?
You just were told go upstairs. Run upstairs, run upstairs. Don't come down.
Because in your household, and I don't know if it's comfortable
Yes.
for you to talk there. Okay, so in your household, something was going on that didn't feel safe. So you ran upstairs. Is that what I'm hearing?
Mhm. I had to.
Yes, you had to get away from something that felt unsafe. So 4-year-old Liz made a decision then about life. What did you say to yourself about your life?
Mm.
Could it be something, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth and I don't want to take the moment from you. I want you to really feel it. But something like life isn't safe. I need to be able to get away. I need to be able to go somewhere safe. Something like that.
Yes.
Okay. So as a 4-year-old, something happened. The grown-ups in the house were doing whatever they were doing, and the child felt, I need to get away in order to feel safe. And
Mhm.
that became a view of how you look at the world. Life can be unsafe, and this is what I need to do.
Mhm.
Okay. And so you're going along with life, and then this happens. And now all of that experience or trauma, whatever word you want to use, as a 4-year-old is right back here. It's right here. And the feeling, I actually should have asked you first, how do you feel in your body when you tell me about I can't run anymore? How did you feel in your body as a 4-year-old? Do they feel the same?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's your 4-year-old Liz who's managing this very adult situation of what's happened to your body and where you have to live your life now. And she doesn't have the tools to do it. She just knows I run. That's all she knows as a 4-year-old. Does this resonate with you? Does this feel okay?
Yes.
Awesome. I really want to acknowledge you, especially given that maybe there's people in the house to go deep into this. But when you see the 4-year-old Liz is driving your experience of your life now, actually, what would you say to that little girl if you were back in that household and something was going on and she was running up the stairs?
What I used to say to her would be hide, don't come out.
That's what you said when you were 4. Now
Yes.
you're a grown up looking at the 4-year-old. What would you say to her?
It's okay.
It's okay. I got you. I got you. Come here, little girl. I got you. Right? That's what any of us would say to a 4-year-old. I get moved every time we do this because we all are so stuck in what happened to us. But if you can start to say, I got you, and really when you look, whatever was happening, I don't know what happened when in your childhood household, but you're still here, right? So whatever the adults were doing, whatever tools they had that worked or didn't work, whatever anger was there that they didn't know how to deal with better, that was what they were doing. But if you can start to talk to yourself and tell that 4-year-old little girl, we don't have to handle it this way anymore. There's other ways. I'm going to create a different story to live into. You're a runner, like actual physical runner you were before your amputee. Yeah, which I used to run. It's not easy. That tells me you're resilient. That tells me you're tough. I think runners are tough. So you're not going to put your resilience and your running and your toughness into physical running, but you can put your resilience and your toughness where you need to put it now. And help yourself not be run by your 4-year-old. How old are you?
Old. Just 40. I'm 40.
So you want 40-year-old Liz, the grown-up Liz, who can look and respond to her life to be in charge, rather than 4-year-old Liz, who's scared and doesn't have the skills and is just trying to feel safe. Let her stop running your show and let grown-up Liz create a new story.
And I will tell you that it's really brave of you to have spoken up and have been vulnerable there, because that's just in and of itself is a big deal for you. It's so great to see.
I was gonna go there.
No, I know it's really awesome. I think that it's part of your healing journey, but I know that other folks in the group would have theirs to share as well. I also have been run by my little child, and oftentimes, like multiple times a week, have to check, like, why do I feel this heightened about this thing? And so you're not alone, Liz. My little girl's still around all the time. I'm trying to quiet her down and make her feel safe, and we're all just on this journey to try to figure it out. But I will tell you that, like, past traumas, like what you're suggesting, and the unlovable feeling that I have, and not being able to trust people because of trusting adults in my past and having it turn into a situation where it shouldn't have. So you're not alone.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do really also want to acknowledge you for being the brave one to share your story, not knowing where we were going to go with it.
Yeah, no, I had no idea.
I know. And so I hope something shifted for you in just that conversation, just a different window to look through. And part of what can happen if you choose to, because it's all a choice. You can choose to stay right where you're at. You can choose to look at it differently. You can choose to create something else. And I'm saying you to everybody, to myself. That's what it is to be a human being, right? That's why these frames work for everyone, even though everybody's story is different, but they all work because we all do it because we're all human beings. But a big way to start to shift that, now that you've dismantled your story and what happened a little bit and you're seeing what's at play, is forgiveness. Forgiveness for yourself, maybe. Forgiveness for the grown-ups who were in the house, who made you feel scared and like you had to run upstairs and hide. And it's not like, okay, I'm just like, tonight I could forgive. It takes some practice, some really like sitting down and, who do I need to forgive? Why? Why do I want to forgive? It's not for them, it's for me. I want to forgive them so I can move on and be powerful in this phase of my life. So here's the frame I want to put it into. My daughter died. That's what happened. I could be in a mom's group of parents who lost their children and be in that every week. Mm-mm. I'm doing this because that's part of my story. That's part of my experience. What am I going to do with it? And my husband left me. My husband, through the course of our marriage, Charlotte was, the night she was born, rushed for open heart surgery. We had no idea. And she lived to be 15. And in those 15 years, she mostly was in the hospital. 2 open heart surgeries, a kidney transplant, a stroke. Then she got cancer in her brain from the immunosuppression from the transplant drugs. 2 years of chemotherapy, a year of immunotherapy, then her kidney failed and she died. And during all of those years, my husband was having an affair for most of them and had another little boy. Now, I could be all over that, right? Look, like you're going like that, right? And believe me, there was a time when I was. There was a time when I was. I'm pushing 60. The woman he's with is 18 years younger. I'm old. I didn't take care of myself. I was taking care of our kids. He should have been a better partner. We've done lives together about the power of forgiveness because I have a son and I don't want my son to feel torn between either one of us. That's more important to me. And I don't want my body to be unhealthy because of my anger. That's more important to me. So I've done the work to forgive him, not because he deserves it or anything. He's over there living his life with a new little boy and an 18-year younger woman. And I could be over here pissed off, resentful, or I could be spending the evening with you where we're hopefully all going to leave this call like, I'm left better than when I got on. That's my hope. I will be.
How, if I could interject, if you could speak to that, because it totally hits me, and I have said this in our private conversations before, but your story and your outlook and your commitment to improving your life and the lives of other people is just so profound. Forgiveness is huge. I know personally everybody in this group, and I think that that's a theme that's very challenging, especially with people that have really done you wrong at a time where like you really just needed them. And what could you speak to that if you had like a pearl or two of wisdom for like a starting place for people? Because I know that it is such a challenging thing.
So this is my perspective. People doing us wrong, they were over there only doing what they could for their own life. Nobody is living their life for me. Only I am. They're dealing with their things. So my ex-husband was dealing with his own way of dealing with the stress of our household. And given the tools he had at the time and the way that he felt, he went to another household where he didn't feel so stressed. He could go there and feel like, and then back in our household was a lot of stress. That's what he did. He wasn't doing it to purposely hurt me. He wasn't doing it for anything other than his own survival. Each and every one of us are in our own movie. We are the star of our own movie. So nobody is out living their life trying to be the star of my movie. They're just trying to live their life with their stories and their events and their 4-year-old things that happened and their anger that they've been holding on to. His mother, was very, very conditional mom, very judgmental. If you didn't do what she said, you were like out in the cornfields. Do you remember that from some show, like the Twilight Zone, out in the cornfields? Never mind. There was some show like if you didn't do what this little girl said, she took away your mouth and you were like out in the cornfield like a scarecrow.
Children of the Corn or something?
I don't know. I'm clearly showing my age. It was way long ago. Anyway, and I was so stressed about our daughter. When he came in, nothing he did was good enough. So right away, he was like, responding the way he felt when his mother would be that way. So he went to, spend time with someone who made him feel better. So everybody is doing their own life and their own movie. Nobody's doing anything that they're doing to you. It just feels that way. That's a place to start anyway for me.
No, I think that's great. I feel like I know myself personally and some of the conversations I've had with folks here, you know, because you view things through your own lenses, people's actions can feel like there's no way that they could have done that without thinking of how that was gonna, it's like unfathomable, so like basic, kindnesses. And to your point, it's really powerful to think that that ego, right, that we have, and I don't use it in the negative connotation word, but like just that piece of our subconscious immediately keeps us as that focal point when we may not have nothing to do with it.
Or even, let's just play devil's advocate, even if they are really clear they're hurting us, really clear, their need to feel better or to do something for themselves is bigger. That's all. It's not like, oh, yay, I get to hurt her. I mean, maybe there's some sociopaths like that, but most people know. But it's like my need to feel better in some way, or my need to take care of whatever I need to take care of in my movie. Sorry, it's going to sacrifice you, but this need is what's driving me. So even if you know.
When you use those words, the way that you're explaining it, when I transpose that on my life circumstance, and maybe you guys in the group can just nod along if you feel the same. If I put the story away that I have in those similar situations and I use the words that you're using about the other person, it immediately makes me feel more worthy, more loved, more all of the things that I mentioned before were the identities that I felt in those situations, because it, again, the accountability goes away. It's not a me thing. So I love the way that you explain that, because it immediately gives me a sense of relief when I relate back to those circumstances. Can anyone else feel that? Have you like run through? Yeah, it just immediately it's like such a quick fix to decrease suffering that I think is such a good tool.
I'm glad. Thank you. Yeah. And then if you can get yourself to that place, then you can start to do the forgiveness work. And we don't have really time to talk about it tonight, but part of that is clearing the energy, which you and I talked a little bit about as another possible conversation, but the energy of the emotions that we hold. We want to get the energy of anger out of our body, the energy of unforgiveness out of our body, the energy of being a victim out of our body, because it stays in our body. So that's like, you want to find, where can I get myself to a place where I can even start to do that?
Linda, I'm so excited that everyone had the chance to learn from you, and I cannot believe an entire hour has passed already. It flew by. I have so many more questions and like so many more stories. I feel like there's always just short time when there's someone so amazing and captivating. I would love to have you back on talking about some of that work, because I'm fascinated in the energy pieces. I am just learning about the science even behind some of this stuff, and I think that the group would be kind of blown away about the why behind what it does when you feel those ways. And like, there's actual stuff out there that's not just conceptual, that's, what people think. So anyway, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you all listening in. Liz, thank you for sharing. If you guys have any questions, feel free to email me. If you have things after this that you want to share or want to work through, and you want to be connected to Linda, don't let financial, barriers be a concern. That's where Less Like More Heart comes into. So if you feel like the stuff that we talked about tonight is beneficial in your journey, which I think for everybody is the case, and you want to know more, just be in touch. I appreciate you guys all spending your evening with me. And I really hope that I see you again the second Thursday of next month. Linda, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me. It was my honor to meet all of you. And thanks, Liz, for your courage and your vulnerability.
Okay, guys, have a wonderful night.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for coming.
Next time I'll speak.
No, there's no pressure ever, but yeah, it's a safe space.
Good night.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.